In this video, an HOA Karen sent me over 37 HOA Bylaw Violation Notices to my farm, claiming that she owns my land. But I have never even joined the HOA to begin with. Let's dive right into the story. So I own a farm that has existed long before I was born, and my hope is that it will still be around and doing good work long after I am gone. The farm really has not changed much and might be what some of you might think of when you hear the word farm. I have crops, animals, a barn, a horse, a tractor, and even overalls. I think the basic nature of my farm is part of the beauty of things. Everything else changes so quickly, but farms kind of end up in a time capsule. The area used to be all rural, with farms and ranches and just overall large plots of land. Most of the people got bought out, though, by a developer wanting to turn the area into a more suburban neighborhood for people with more money. I wouldn't call it a gated community, because there are not any actual gates, but it's the same general idea. The development sprung up, and honestly, I think the whole place was kind of ugly. All the houses were built like they came from a mold, all the same, and no personality or anything put into it. I'm sure some people like that kind of thing, but it would never be the kind of place for me. Now, after most of the homes got sold, more changes ended up happening around the town. The local grocery store ended up run out of business, and instead a chain one that I don't want to name popped up instead. It was hard seeing some other local businesses shut down because these people came and then wanted to change everything. There are probably a lot of not nice people living in that area, but the only one I'm gonna talk about is Karen. Now, Karen was the leader of the local HOA that the community decided it needed for some reason. I'm not in the community, meaning I'm not part of the HOA. That did not stop me from learning who Karen was fairly quickly though. If you were in town and Karen was too, you would always hear her complaining about things being old, like, "Karen, it's an old rural area, that is what things are like here." She insulted locals right to our faces too. She had in her mind that everybody should be and act like her. I tried to picture that I might wake up in a cold sweat at 3 AM. But well, I soon met Karen personally because I started getting letters from her in the mail. They were all HOA fines, and no matter what, the complaint she was able to go for was at least a page. I cannot remember them all to share with you, but I do have a couple of examples that should paint the picture pretty clearly. Things like my barn being too visible and my tractor not being a coded vehicle. I wrote back and explained that I'm not in the HOA, so the rules don't apply to me. I never got a reply back aside from just more fines. That all led up to the day that I met Karen face to face as she came to my farm. She knocked on my door and I opened it to find her standing there and holding her nose. I don't think anything smelled bad, and she was just being dramatic about everything. She had told me that my violations have added up, and since I had not paid anything, the HOA had the right to come and collect. She told me that with all 37 fines I racked up, it would be enough to take my entire farm away from me. Nobody told her that threatening a farmer was a bad idea, because now she had gotten me angry. You do not make threats to take away a man's farm. Me, do you have corn in your ears? I told you that I'm not part of your little HOA. The houses are over there and I'm over here. Now stop sending me fines for things that don't even apply to me. And don't you dare threaten my farm again. I shut the door right in her face after that and figured that she got the message. I hadn't heard from her again in a while, so I thought it was done and over with, but I was wrong because Karen had come back a few weeks later and I was ready to tear her a new one again. She cut me off though. "Karen, I have right here paperwork that shows this farm is HOA property. We let you stay here out of kindness, but with you continuously breaking our rules and starting trouble, we are formally telling you that you need to leave." Me, you don't own this land. It has been in my family for generations. "Karen, I have the papers right here." Me, and I have papers saying the land is mine, so if you want to fight me for the property, we will take our papers to court and they will tell you what I'm about to now, without you needing to pay for a lawyer. This is my farm and you don't own it. You don't have rights to it and you cannot tell me what to do on it. "Karen, we will see about that. Just remember that we asked you to leave." What I expected was for Karen to file some kind of lawsuit against me and try to make a judge believe that her phony paperwork was real. Instead, she had taken to harassing me at every turn and even causing problems on my farm. Karen, along with other HOA people, would come onto my farm and try to cause trouble while I was sleeping. After the first day when I caught my fence being damaged, I added security cameras to try and catch them in the act. It took about 3 more acts of vandalism though before I got Karen's face on camera good enough to take it to the police. She was arrested for trespassing and destruction of private property. She had put holes in my barn, yanked out crops and harassed my animals. She was lucky she didn't try and mess with my horse though, because she would have kicked Karen right through a stable door. Of course, Karen was furious about getting arrested and claimed that I was framing her to get out of paying my HOA fines. While she was guilty of doing those things based on video footage, she still thought it would be a good idea to try and fight over the land. But this time there was more at stake, because if she won, it meant charges would be dropped based on it being not my property. She should have been nervous, but her ego was not gonna allow her to be. She waltzed right into court and started making outrageous claims right out of the gate. Her lawyer was claiming that I had surrendered my land to the HOA when it was first developed and then was trying to go back on that deal. With it, I would be able to squat on the land and avoid taxes and things like that. She told stories of our interactions, but in those I was screaming and threatening her with a gun if she tried to take back the land. She made it come off like she was terrified for her life and I was some kind of big monster trying to take advantage of her. I could even see her smirk at me while pretending to cry and be traumatized. She sure was a better actor than I could ever be, but I had a weapon that did not need good acting skills, which is the truth. I showed all my paperwork of owning the property and old deeds showing how long it was in my family for, even property surveys that showed where the farm ended and where the HOA had jurisdiction over. Karen just had the one paperwork claiming that it was HOA property, but nothing to actually back that piece of paper up. We were also able to poke a huge hole in her story, since she had changed it from HOA taking my property to it already belonging to them. My fines did not even make any sense. I brought those two and showed them to the judge, who agreed that they were long-winded and clearly just trying to attack me for things that came with being a farmer. The judge was also very interested in the fact that she had sent me exactly 37 fines. It turned out that 37 was the magic number the HOA needed in order to try and put a lien on somebody's property. Despite the HOA not being around for that long, Karen had managed to give those 37 fines to multiple homes, both inside and outside of the HOA boundaries. She was extorting money basically, and for her it would be a win either way, because she either extorts money or steals the land. But it gets even more juicy the deeper that Karen's past was dug into by both the courts and the local media. So before Karen had moved here, she was in a different HOA that had been shut down due to misappropriation of funds and attempts of illegal house liens. Nobody here was gonna believe a word that she said or believe her fake paperwork. She was found guilty and given some severe fines of her own to pay to the county. I think what was best for me came after the court case and her past and stuff all came out to the public. She was seen as the scam artist that she was, and nobody wanted anything to do with her. She was kicked out of the HOA, but more than that, she was totally ostracized. I think she only stayed a couple more months before leaving, due to the fact that people seemed to just hate her that much. Karen leaving did not solve every problem of some of the people from the community still being entitled though, and bringing new change to an old town that likes its tradition. Without Karen though, I was not getting harassed anymore and able to just do my work and watch my farm thrive. One good that came from it is that these types of people seem to love organic fruit and vegetables, so the locally sourced from a farm right near them was a big turn on. I was making good money from them and nobody else tried to steal my property anymore. I did sue the HOA for money in order to fix the damage that Karen had done and managed to walk away with some extra money in my pocket. I don't know if she is off trying to run another scam, but I can tell you one thing I do know. She learned that trying to threaten a farmer about taking away his farm and animals will leave you with the door slammed in your face. We don't screw around with anything, but when it comes to our farm, you will never see us more serious. I still hope the farm will last long after I am gone, even with the changes happening. And the next one is a revenge story in Disneyland. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video, since that would help me tremendously. So today I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. Super fun day, lines longer than I remember, but maybe I was just excited back then. My friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times, and it didn't matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4, mom, 2 daughters and dad, walked through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled and asking what they are doing. Mom claims that they forgot something on the right. They make it to the part of the right where single riders, fast pass riders and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me screams, "What did you forget?" Everyone in the single rider lane is fuming as we all realized she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and we are shocked that no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement, so when my friend and I get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids looked like and what she did. He says at this point, since they are already in line to board the car, he cannot do much. We make it to the car boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. I stop yet another employee and explain the situation. She says she will let someone know but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and pulls on his arm and says, "Come on, Dad." We turn around and Dad is behind us. He refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in the line complaining about what they did. So everyone starts speaking louder, the whole line. What a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone is waiting the same, some people for hours. Why do they think they are special? Why lie to get what you want? The whole line is loudly speaking, so these people know exactly what we think of them. Dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame and his family inches closer to the front of the line. I had enough at that point. I talked to the people in front of me and asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'll be damned if they are getting on this ride. I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators and they were all happy to step aside. Mom is blocking the walkway because they are next up. I tap her on her side and say, "Excuse me," and stare her down. She slides over without a word. I then tell the ride operator, "This lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line claiming that she forgot something. You can ask anyone in this line." She gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Disney mom is trying to say both of us are lying, then everyone in line starts yelling and telling the same story, determined not to let her or her kids on the ride. They were eventually escorted out the side door. And the next one is an amazing HOA Malicious Compliance story. So let me tell you about my dear neighbor Karen. Yes, that Karen. You know the type, clipboard, self-righteous attitude, always sniffing out problems that don't exist. She's not even on the HOA board, but she acts like she's the president of the universe. The issue started when I decided to brighten up my yard with some colorful flowers. Nothing crazy, just some daisies, tulips and a little garden patch. Harmless, right? Well, not according to Karen. One afternoon she stomps over, waving her little HOA rule book like it's the Bible, and she is Moses coming down the mountain. "Those flowers are not in compliance," she screeches. "You're violating section 12.4. Only native plants are allowed." I try to reason with her and say, "Karen, the HOA guidelines just say the yard has to be well maintained. These flowers are fine." But no, Karen was not having it. She said she was gonna report me to the HOA because rules are rules. Fine, you want me to follow the rules, Karen? I will follow the rules. So I did some research and found every obnoxious native plant I could get my hands on. Thorny bushes? Check. Spiky grass? Check. A massive yucca plant that looks like it wants to eat small animals? Oh, you better believe I planted that front and center. By the time I was done, my yard looked like a post-apocalyptic jungle, but every single plant was 100% native to the area, and let me tell you, I double-checked the HOA guidelines to make sure I was bulletproof. Karen then comes stomping back a few weeks later, furious. "This is unacceptable," she yells, flailing her clipboard. "Your yard looks terrible." "Oh, Karen," I said with the sweetest smile I could muster, "you were so right. My flowers were not compliant. But these are all native plants, just like the rules you pointed out. Isn't it great?" She sputtered like a broken engine and ran off to the HOA. They reviewed my yard and guess what? Completely compliant. Karen ended up getting a warning from the board for harassing neighbors. Now I sit on my porch sipping coffee, surrounded by my chaotic jungle of compliance, while Karen avoids making eye contact every time she walks by. It's the little victories, you know. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I got into a year-long lawsuit with my HOA all because of a single person within it. That being a woman that shall be dubbed Karen. Karen. A name she has more than earned in the worst kind of way possible. First though, we have the other main character of my story, which is me. I don't really have much of interest to say about myself, aside from the fact that I like pickup trucks. Old classic ones especially, since I'm one of those people that believe they don't make them like they used to. I actually spent a good few years of my free time fixing one up enough for it to be my main vehicle. I was proud of managing to pull it off at the same time as me doing this was when Karen ended up becoming the president of our HOA. Not that I knew at the time because I paid zero attention to things like that. I will say that I found out the hard way that once she got her position, she went on a total power trip thinking she was the boss of everybody and everything. I pulled into my driveway like usual, and Karen happened to see me and went on a tirade about my truck. She was telling me that an old truck like that was full of pollution and the HOA bylaw said that I couldn't have it here. I did not know the bylaws, but I looked it up that night and saw that she was just lying through her teeth. When Karen came to me again a few days later about getting rid of the truck, I told her there was no bylaw and she couldn't do anything about it. Wrong choice of words on my part, as she must have seen that as a sick kind of challenge. She had my truck towed away that night and the next day came to hand me a fine. Well, first of all, I was pissed and wanted the truck I spent years fixing just back. Just daring her to show me the bylaw that said this because I knew that it wasn't in there. She just hated trucks or something, I don't know, or really care. I did not even open the fine until I got in my house and knew she was crazy. $10,000 for having the truck was the fine she gave me. Now, I don't know anything about how HOA fines work, but I was sure that they couldn't just give me a fine for that much money. There had to be some kind of regulation on what broken rules get what fines, otherwise they can just charge everybody $1 million for anything. I tried again to reason with Karen, but it was clear that she had no intention of taking away my fine or giving me back my truck. In fact, she threatened to give me another fine for just bothering her. I tried to go to other more reasonable HOA board members for help, but they couldn't do anything. At the time, I took it as them being rude or just as horrible as Karen. Way later, I found out that Karen had blackmail on all of them and was using it as leverage to do anything she wanted. Getting backed up out of fear of her exposing things about them. I can be sure it also helped her get into the position of HOA president in the first place as well, so I was left with no choice but to spend money on getting a lawyer that would press charges against Karen. I knew that towing the truck was illegal and was pretty sure the fine was as well. A lawyer confirmed both that I cannot get a fine for a rule that doesn't exist and it cannot be for a random amount of money. So he wrote a legal letter to the HOA lawyer stating that if the truck was returned and the fine overturned, I would not pursue the matter further into court. I did not want a long legal battle if I didn't need to have one. However, the HOA Karen refused these terms, so I was forced to file the paperwork to take her to court. My biggest worry was the state of my truck, since she wouldn't tell me where it was. The lawyer got her on some legal thing of the truck being evidence and therefore needing to be kept in a secure location or something. It was basically still in a tow yard, but it was safe there until we could get the entire thing sorted out. Now, court was where Karen really learned that she was not some big shot in charge of everything like she thought. Karen did not even bother coming up with some crazy defense because in her mind, she could not be wrong. My lawyer asked her directly if she had towed my truck illegally. Karen, I had it towed, but it was not illegal. Lawyer, was the truck not on his private driveway? Karen, yes, but that doesn't matter. Lawyer, why not? Karen, because I run the HOA, which means that the property is really all mine. He had no right to park the truck there when it's not allowed on HOA property. There was more with her going on again about why my truck was not allowed, but she had already made a huge mistake. Claiming that she felt the property all belonged to her just because she ran the HOA. It got a lot of eyebrows raised and showed just how crazy that Karen was. When asked to show the rule against my truck, she said there wasn't an official one, but it was one of her own. The case did not need to keep going, as it was obvious that Karen was in the wrong here. The judge started to rip her a new one, telling her that she did not own the neighborhood just because she was the president. Also telling her that she could not find people whatever she wanted, and he would be digging in to make sure that she had not done this kind of thing to other people before. We were dismissed with the order for my truck to be returned and the fine being revoked due to being illegal. That was not the end for Karen, since that look into what she was doing found more things. She was fining a ton of people for random things she didn't personally like and just making up the amounts. Not even filing it correctly, so she was basically embezzling the money. Not on purpose, just because she was too dumb and self-absorbed to learn how to do it the right way. She was forced to step down from her HOA position, and you can tell the rest of the board was happy with that. Karen was disgraced and labeled as a liar and a con artist. Even if she wanted to expose the other board members' secrets now, nobody would end up believing her. She would go around saying that she stepped down to take more time for herself, but everybody knew the truth of the situation. She learned the hard way not to mess with a guy who loves his old truck. It took almost a year of battling, but I made sure that she was not going to get a happy ending with towing my truck away. In the end, she had to pay for my legal fees, and her face looked like she had eaten dozens of lemons. Take that, Karen. And before I send you guys away, we will read one last satisfying petty revenge story. It is titled Threw Sun Lounger Hoggers Towels in the Pond. So I'm currently on the tropical island resort of Hamilton Island in Australia. Yesterday I arrived at the pool at 7 AM when it opens, and I noticed 7 sun loungers had towels laid over them already. They were in the best spot, with large umbrellas shading them. By the way guys, interesting fact that just came to my mind, we don't really have many stories from Australia. Same goes actually for my audience, because only 5% of my viewers are from Australia. Either way though, the pool gets busy by 8 AM and all sun loungers become occupied. The selfish people that reserved their spot did not arrive until 11:15, well over 4 hours later. They only stayed in the pool for 1 hour. This really pissed me off. The next morning I sat on my balcony watching over the pool. As soon as I saw the entitled Mr. Sun Lounge Hogger heading out to claim his thrones, I followed behind and collected all 7 towels and threw them in the pond next to the pool. I picked the prime position so I could witness their reaction. It was brilliant. They tried to accuse the new residents of the sun loungers, but other people backed them up. They collected their wet, dirty towels, and after realizing there were no sun loungers, they left, looking thoroughly annoyed. It was deliciously petty, but worth it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.